Congressman Rob Wittman from House Armed Services. Congressman, let's talk about this phone call that Reuters is reporting about, and Congress looks like it's going to investigate. The president's phone call in July with the former Afghanistan president. Reuters said that he pressured the Afghan leader to paint a false picture, tell the media around the world that the Taliban was weaker, that the Taliban was losing, versus what the reality was, and that was the leader of Afghanistan is saying, no, the Taliban is bringing in 15,000 terrorists. It's got Pakistan, the wind behind its sails. So talk about the timing of this. That's what the media is missing about this, is the timing of this. Why was Biden doing that phone call in July? Why was he talking about that at that point?
That's a great question, Liz. That's a question that this administration needs to answer. It's a question that the Congress needs to ask. We need to see all of the conversations that President Biden had with President Ghani, especially in light of what the president said, and that is that this overtaking of Afghanistan by the Taliban was completely unexpected. That completely contradicts this conversation that he had with President Ghani. I want to understand that. But Liz, there's so much more. It's not just that conversation, but I want to understand other conversations. I want to understand, why did we have no plan to get U.S. citizens out or Afghans who helped us out? Why did we leave behind $83 billion worth of equipment? I want to understand exactly the type of equipment that's there. Much of that equipment, I believe, is advanced equipment that will fall into the hands of not only the Taliban, but others, and will be used against the United States. There's a whole litany of questions that need to be answered, especially in light of the contradiction of the president.
But this phone call just feels like a manipulative breach of trust. That's what critics are saying, right? I mean, so he goes in. We know he's risk averse. We know he told Obama to hold off on going after even Osama bin Laden. We know that he was talking about September 11th to look like, to make like it was a victory that we're pulling out of Afghanistan on September 11th. Then that date got moved. So, he inherited a pretty solid deal from Trump where it was conditions based, but then he just threw it all out. And at that point in July, he was talking about optics instead of going in and saying, let's stop this down. We're going to rescue Americans right now. The timetable will be driven by rescuing Americans. Instead, he's talking about media perceptions. Do you know what I mean? It's about topspin and optics, which is so weird.
Liz, it is. I believe that this decision was 100% political. It's obvious he didn't listen to military leaders. If he did, it would have been done much differently. Think about this. It should be the military last to leave. Instead, the military was out, again, for optics reasons, and then you had to send them back in to be able to evacuate Americans. That just doesn't make sense. At every turn, if you understand these decisions, it leads you to believe that they're all political decisions. That's why it's so incredibly important that we get to the bottom of this.
Right, Congressman, he's been around since the Nixon administration. He was there during the Vietnam drawdown debacle out of Saigon. How could you get it so wrong? How did you get it flat out wrong? And now you got 13 troops dead and our Americans abandoned behind terror lines. The media is now criticizing Press Secretary Jen Psaki for giving cover to the president. When asked about this phone call, she's saying, I'm not going to answer questions about this. But now she's top spinning, saying nobody knew the Taliban would so rapidly take over the country as quickly as it did when the CIA was telling the White House it would, when intelligence was saying it would, when the United Nations was warning it would, when NATO was warning it would, when UK said, it's going to collapse rapidly if you pull out. Nobody believes this White House anymore. We have a White House head as a severe credibility crisis, Congressman, and that is so bad reputational-wise for how we stand in the status we are in around the world.
It is, Liz. We are in a terrible position with our allies. I have heard from a number of ambassadors from around the world that are asking the question, what in the world is going on? This administration does not want to be transparent. They do not want to answer questions because they know the answers to the question will not reflect well upon them. Again, this is all about optics. It's all about politics. This should be about what's best for the nation, about doing what's right for the nation. And unfortunately, that's not job one for this administration. This administration is now about trying to put a lid on any information coming out about what happened in Afghanistan because they believe that
and it's about stubborn vanity. You know what? It is about stubbornness. It's about vanity. vanity. It's about these guys thinking they're always the smartest guys in the room, and when they're not. You know, let's listen to what leverage we have, which we don't, with the Taliban. Sorry to raise my voice, forgive me. Let's listen to former Secretary of State Mike. I just can't believe that 13 troops are dead and our Americans are stranded behind Taliban lines. Let's listen to Mike Pompeo on this and Kash Patel. Let's hear what they have to say. Watch.
I'm very concerned. I don't see that we have any leverage. I think that's actually, when you hear the spokesperson or the president talk about leverage, I think that's code words for money, American money, going to these butchers, these men who are doing these horrific things today in Afghanistan. I think the president is signaling to the world he's willing to buy these Americans back when it didn't have to be the case.
Under President Trump, that was part of our conditions-based withdrawal. Anything we couldn't remove, we were going to blow up in country. President Biden had no plan. He had a reactionary evacuation that failed the American people and has left a disastrous amount of equipment in the hands of our enemies that's going to hurt us for years to come.
Sir, we're in the middle of history. We've never been in a geopolitical crisis like this before. This is worse than the fall of Saigon. Military experts keep telling us that. Congressman, your final word.
Yes, I think Secretary Pompeo is exactly right. We are in a terrible position with the Taliban, especially trying to get the remaining Americans and the Afghans that have helped us. And the point about military equipment there, that military equipment, I believe, is going to fall into the hands of the wrong people. It will be used against the United States in our interests. We will regret the day that we left behind that equipment for others to use.
Well, it's basically funding a terror state, and I don't think the U.S. taxpayer wants that. Congressman Rob Wittman, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Okay, we're heading almost into the bottom of the hour.